Okay, good. So here we are on the first ever broadcast of Get Going TV. Get Going TV is a channel which is featuring people that get going in life. Really, that's how I can describe it, I guess. And
Right.
the first guest is my partner in crime, William Tucker. William and I are. William is in India. I am not in India, but we are doing a project in India. It's an educational project, and we'd like to introduce that project. So, William, if you take it away and just maybe you should start with who you are a little, where you come from, and why you ended up in India.
Ooh, that's a lot of questions in one.
Oh
But
yes, oh yes.
here we go. My name is William Tucker. Um, well, I would say I have a little bit of an international background. My father's American. My mother is Swedish. I was born in Belgium, based in Holland, Denmark, Sweden, and the United Kingdom. Um, so I've lived in a lot of countries. I speak several languages. Uh, and I guess since a child, helping others and education has just always been a passion of mine, right? Probably because I went to so many schools as a kid, right? I lived in six different countries, and then I don't think I was in any one school longer than 2 years in my life. You know? So being through like many schooling systems. Uh, and I guess it kind of gave me a reality that school can be a pain, and that there must be better ways of getting an education. Uh,
Right.
and I would say that's really, what drives me. And in part of my upbringing, I was having to learn different languages, meet different cultures. Um, My grandmother was a sociologist, one of the first female sociologists in Sweden. Wonderful lady, really, really wonderful lady. Professor emeritus of Gothenburg University in Sweden. Um, she took me with her on a few trips when I was a child to different countries. Uh, So, at a very young age, I got exposed uh, to third world situations,
Right. So
as a
so
Western.
where were you? Where were you? Like she, you were in Sweden, but were you like you were not your whole youth in Sweden, right? You lived in
No,
Holland.
no, no, no. I lived in Holland, Belgium, Denmark, Sweden, and the United Kingdom. And in actual fact, to visit my grandmother, I'd have to go to Sweden, but she would be traveling internationally as a sociologist for the University of Gothenburg in Sweden. So she actually took me over to Africa, so I got to see as a child, some of the third world situations while she was doing field trips, in villages in the middle of nowhere.
Wow.
Uh, and Yeah, this really left an impression on me, I must say. Right? I was like, wow, you know, this isn't fair. Uh,
Different worlds.
it's a different world. And I guess as a child, I was like, well, I was outraged by the unfairness of it, right? The injustice of it, right? I
Yeah.
thought I had it rough, you know what I mean? Having to go to school every day. And all of a sudden, I'm in a place where there's no school, right?
Oh wow.
And where kids are fighting for survival, Kids younger than mine, I'm like 13 at the time, uh, but I'm seeing kids drink out of mud puddles,
Wow.
right?
Yeah.
Um, and They don't have school at all. Uh, so it became very clear to me, that there was some imbalance or injustice in the world. Something wasn't right.
Right.
You know? So that kind of like, I would say, was a defining moment for me of like, hey, something needs to change, right? And I would not say I knew the answers at that time, but I definitely was left with like, yeah, something must change, and something must be done about it.
Right. So that is your first encounter with education, because right now you're all about education.
Yeah.
So could you say that, like your first inspiration would have been in Africa, or?
Yeah, my first inspiration would have been in Africa, and to be very honest, also, it's just, my grandmother, just taking me around and having the courage to like take me as a grandchild to a dangerous place,
Hmm.
right? And showing me, hey, this is what the world really is. Uh,
Yeah, there's not a lot of grandmas around that do that.
no, and just, like this is like she was an incredible lady, I must say. She was the first female sociologist, had to break the whole gender barrier in Sweden.
Right.
Was one of the first female sociology professors at the time when women just weren't professors. So yeah, she was special.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah.
So that was when you were 13, you were in Africa. So
13.
yeah. So where would you say that for the first time in your life you thought, okay, I must do something with education and I must do something to get people educated in general or specifically in areas like Africa and India? I mean, I also know you have a project in Venezuela. How long is that project going already?
That's been going for about 5 years, 4 or 5 years. I think, when, here's very interesting. Okay, this is like a really good question. I first, I've always volunteered in my entire life, right? Like I've
Mhm.
always done volunteer work, whether it's like, um, you know, helping distribute food, helping do cleanups, uh, say no to drugs, human rights. I've always loved being involved, but at a certain point, like where I really started, where I really made the switch was during the Syrian refugee crisis, right? Because my
Right.
wife and I, we were helping Syrian refugee children, providing winter clothes. We helped about 100,000 people at the time. Um, but I'd done aid for a very long time. And when you're giving food, when you're giving clothes, when you're giving materials, it's like an unending giving, right?
Right.
Um, there's one disaster after the next, right? And nothing ever seems to change. And you get a lot of volunteers and people like, in the volunteer field, they suffer from burnout after a while,
Yeah, I
okay?
understand.
And especially if you're doing emergency relief, because there's always a war happening, there's always a disaster happening. There's always a genocide happening. There's always something, there's always a famine, right?
Yeah.
And it just doesn't stop. And you keep giving, you keep giving, keep giving. So you tend to bleed dry or just get burnout. And at a certain point, I just went, wow, this just isn't working, right?
Right.
What's wrong? Like there must, how do you end all this? How do you end all this suffering? How do you end all this war, right? And in my view, when you analyze it and just go to the root bottom of every cause, well, it's actually a lack of education. Why do you have a famine? Well, it's not because the technology to produce enough food doesn't exist. It's because the people don't know,
Yeah,
you know?
that's a very interesting. It's a very interesting thing.
Yeah, it's because the people don't know how to properly take care of the land, right?
Right.
They don't know how to prevent soil erosion. They don't know, uh, you know, how to recoup land, how to refertilize land, how to do proper irrigation. You get into slums, you know, and you go like, What's wrong? And you see, well, everything is built incorrectly. You know, it's not that people don't try, they don't know how. Because they don't know how, you know, they'll build their house in a place where it's going to get washed away. You as an engineer come in and go, why are you building your house in, you know, in that place, right?
Yeah, 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 yeah.
The first rainfall, the first monsoon, it's going to wash away. And it
Right.
does, right? I mean, I'm
Yeah.
right down in slums where I know the next monsoon, oh my God, half the houses are going to be gone,
Right.
right? And they're going to have to rebuild.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Now, when you talk to these people, they just don't know how to properly build, what to do to avoid, you know. There's a total lack of education. Okay?
Yeah.
So and because of this, you have like an unending cycle of rebuild, destruction, rebuild, destruction, rebuild, destruction, rebuild, destruction. You know, we're actually not even missing the resources. You know, it's just in most places not being built in such a way so you don't have to redo it a year later.
Right.
Right? You know,
It's like a vicious circle, kind of.
it's a vicious circle. Just, you know, and it's not because the people are bad. It's not because they're stupid, because they're not. They're actually very smart, right? Uh, There's just a lack of education, you know, and the education is not available in the area, you know. So it's an unending circle. It will never end unless you break it. And you can't
Yeah.
break it by giving another jacket, by giving another loaf of bread, you know, it doesn't break the circle. Only
Yeah, I get it.
education. So after years and years of aid, you know, and almost, you know, going like, wow, you know, this never ends. You know, I just had to get, and seeing friends, you know, really good friends, you know, in the aid community, like suffering burnout. I went, wow, okay, now this has to change. You have to do something different than just provide emergency relief. Obviously, you have to provide emergency relief at times, and I do. But you provide only emergency relief, it will never end. And that's really the moment I understood that. And I went, okay, I'm making the switch to education, because that's how you empower the people themselves.
I mean, like how you say it makes total sense. And it's something I think that is very easily overlooked, you know. And
Yeah. Look, I consider myself smart. Maybe I'm not, but at least I like to think I am, right? I overlooked it for 4 years.
yeah,
You know, I overlooked it 4 years. I'm like, oh, no, 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 you know, I've got to do this emergency relief, you know, because you get so caught in the moment. And yes, emergency relief is needed at times, right?
right. Now
For
you just mentioned the refugees from Syria, right? So now you're in India, but where were you at that time when you were handling that? Where you were helping them?
in Macedonia, right?
Hmm.
And the reason we're in Macedonia, because the refugee flow was into Europe, and in Macedonia, you were right on the zone where it went from temperate to freezing colds, because you're going into the Balkan Mountains, and all these kids, these toddlers and kids, had just, you know, gone through the ocean, lost all the possessions. They come in sandals and shorts, and all of a sudden, these kids are walking through the snow, right, and literally freezing to death, and there's nothing set up at that point, right?
Yeah, yeah,
You know, so they've survived an ocean trip, and now all of a sudden, you know, they're going to die in the mountains. Uh, you
that's
know,
crazy.
not in the media, right?
No,
But but it existed, you know, and we just happened to find out, like, okay, yeah. So we ended up giving about 100,000 people winter clothes, right? Um, yeah, because we know the kids would have got, you know, would have frozen to death, you know, and there was
yeah,
nobody really taking care of that, you know, or very few.
right.
So
So that period you were just doing the emergency relief, kind of, you know,
yeah,
like making sure that they have shoes, that they have clothes.
Yeah.
So you were not really doing the educational part yet over there.
No, no, and then but that's the period when I realized, wow, another war. You know what I mean? Here we are
Yeah,
again. You know,
yeah,
another war, right? And it's so unnecessary, right? Because like when you have a war, and what people don't realize and never think, and what the media never talks about, who suffers, right? Who suffers?
yeah, yeah. The people suffer,
The
children
children.
suffer. Yeah,
Children suffer immensely. You meet 5-year-olds, that have gray hair because of the terror of bombs dropping near their houses.
my
Okay,
goodness,
right? You
Jesus.
have 5-year-olds, that are too terrified to speak. They are in shell shock, right? Because a
Yeah,
missile landed near
right.
uh, or on their building, right?
Yeah,
Uh, um, and people don't realize this. It's like you have Operation Enduring Freedom, or Operation, Bring Democracy, or Operation Kill the Bad Guy, right? Uh,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
right. This is the and no matter what country this come from, like every government will position themselves this way, right?
Right.
And so the population in the Western world or your own country, you go, oh yeah, Operation Kill the Bad Guy. We're fighting for justice, right? Uh, okay, what you don't see, yeah,
Yeah, it's all the consequences.
is the consequences. You know what I mean? And the terrible consequences for the children, right?
Yeah,
And then people will go, well, it's that particular religion or this particular religion or that particular political party or this, it's the communists, it's the Democrats, it's the Republicans. I don't care which one. Like you go through.
yeah. It doesn't matter really. Like you see when you're
Like
down there, you see what's happening.
you, you know uh, the kids aren't politically affiliated, right?
Exactly, exactly.
The kids aren't religiously affiliated, right? They
Yeah,
aren't. They aren't. You know,
exactly.
they think about their teddy bear and toys, and mama, right?
Yeah,
Right? They're not fighting for anything, but they end up being the collateral damage. Okay? So
yeah,
when people talk about, oh, collateral damage, you realize that the definition of collateral damage is really, in reality, children, right?
yeah,
Hear the word collateral damage, talk about or understand children being damaged, right?
yeah.
And one very clear example is we were, funding a school for a kindergarten, in Syria as well. Well, at a certain point, we no longer had to fund it because it had been hit by a missile.
My goodness.
Yeah, right? And that's collateral damage, you know? And, those students no longer needed the crayons.
Yeah,
You
that's not.
understand?
Yeah, yeah. I
And this is
understand.
harsh. I'm saying it without crying at this point, but at the time,
Yeah, it's nuts. It's nuts. It's crazy.
yeah.
I get what you're saying. Okay, cool. So I would like to to book another session with you
Yeah.
because I know what you're doing right now, and that is really awesome. In India, you are in the slums educating kids with an awesome method. I've seen it, and I would like to do a total video about that alone, and that we go
Absolutely.
into that very deep. So for now, for your background and your history, thank you for being here.
All right.
And we'll meet again very soon, somewhere this week. Is that okay with
Okay.
you?
Absolutely.
Okay, good. So thank you very much.
All right. Thank you.